everyone? Welcome to another episode of Side Draft Media. My name is Don. With me, my co host Ryan. As always, Nathan behind the scenes doing his thing. Boy, do we got another special episode cooking up for you guys. We are covering everything from Roval, cutoff, round of eight, Xfinity Cup, points. We're looking ahead to Phoenix in the championship four. We're doing it all. But of course, as always, we got to shout out our amazing wonderful sponsor, Mr. Don Tucker and Tuckered Out Custom Diecast Displays. He 3D prints custom displays with team logos, numbers, everything you're looking for as far as custom made displays. He can probably whip it up for you. We'll leave his links down in the description below so you can get a hold of him and get you one ordered. Man, Ryan, like I was saying, we've got all sorts of stuff to cover from Roval this past weekend and looking ahead to the race at Vegas, man. How are you doing, and what do you got for me today?
Oh man, I'm doing pretty good, Don. It's good to see you. Uh, Man, we had a stressful weekend of racing. As a spectator, as a fan, as media, you name it, we had it all. All the angles, all the strings were pulled on every angle we could for our own sanities.
Max stress
Yeah,
level for sure.
yeah, it was insane. We'll start with the Xfinity series.
Yeah,
We saw what we thought was a race winner, only to not have to a race winner. Re-rack overtime, and either way, it was that Hail Mary driver. Pulling out the outcome as far as a Hail Mary driver is just the driver happened to change in a matter of a couple laps. But yeah, the Xfinity race was wild. It was really good to competitive racing, and you saw strategy play into it just as we thought we would. Um, but yeah, I mean, one of my dark horse picks for the race actually got it done in Sam Mayer. So congratulations to Sam Mayer and Junior Motorsports for advancing and making the round of eight. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of Parker Klingerman and the Big Machine Racing number 48, who thought they had it won. But the caution flag, it was almost like that. Yeah, it was almost like, it reminded me of that commercial. He's like, "Oh, I got you a dollar," and boom, you won, but then you didn't. And it was clear as day. When NASCAR did throw the yellow, that he hadn't taken the white flag yet. So, by the rule, yeah, re-rack. It's NASCAR overtime, and here we go. Sam Mayer did have fresher tires than Parker Klingerman, ends up beating him. But yeah, it was a wild, wild race, and the round of eight in the Xfinity series is going to be fun.
absolutely.
Um, I really just I look at the standings, Don, going into Vegas, and what we have, who we have above the cut versus who's below, and it's a crowded room.
Yep.
It's a crowded room of eight drivers that are all hungry, all can all can certainly get it done and win. And at this point, I have to say, going into this, it's anybody's game. I mean, clearly you can say that there's favorites in that top four, but and who's going to advance. But the points aren't that spread apart. From on the bubble, in eighth place is minus 19, and with stages, how they play out and getting stage points and having a really solid finish, you could end up, if you're Sammy Smith in eighth in points, you could actually leave Vegas above the cut, and it may not even take accident or misfortune from the other drivers. It could just you capitalizing on stage points and having a really solid day. And AJ Allmendinger, he's another one. He runs really well on the road course racing style. Especially the Roval. This is the first Roval race that he didn't win in the Xfinity series that he's been in. So he's now he's now 4 for 5. It's
I mean,
it,
80% at your tries is pretty ridiculous.
yeah, but he still had a good finish, a solid day, and he advances. He's minus 18. Jesse Love, minus 12. We saw a strategy with him and his team. They came in and got tires because they felt that could be the difference. They didn't look good where they were, or felt comfortable with where they were at with the plus minus. They came in, got tires, they passed cars, and they end up advancing. So that strategy ended up playing out for them.
Yep.
We saw tires definitely made a difference in the Xfinity series. And and in the cup for that matter. I just saw it. It just seemed like it made a little bit more of a difference in the Xfinity cars. I think that could have a little bit have been the lap differential. On fresh versus the older tires. But yeah, Jesse Love's there. He's fighting for a championship, and right above him, Sam Mayer. Sam, I just mentioned, and shout out again to Sam Mayer and Junior Motorsports for getting it done. Their backs were up against it. They needed a win, and they absolutely got one. Now they're -8 below the cut. And I think they're going to some tracks that could be favorable for him.
Right.
So and all the junior motorsports cars for that matter.
Just about
That
the same thing.
Yeah. So I mean it's quite interesting. And then one of your picks for the championship four is Chandler Smith, and he's there above the cut right now, +8. Got Austin Hill at +9, +11 for Cole Custer, and then +18 for Justin Allgaier. So I mean that above the cut is almost the complete opposite of the below the cut. And so if you're looking at +18, +19 points either way, it is extremely tight, and every point matters at this stage in the game. And we go into a great intermediate track with Las Vegas, where there's multiple lanes. And I really feel like it's going to be an exciting weekend out at Las Vegas for these Xfinity guys. And I'm quite curious, Don. You saw how it shook out. You saw, the momentum shifts in some teams' eyes, and um, who you got this weekend? I'm just curious. I mean, where your head is racking this all as far as what we saw with the Xfinity guys.
Listen, I know that we covered all the playoff drivers, right? And any one of these guys are capable of going out to this track and getting a W and finding themselves in the championship four. But we didn't mention the guy who won the 2023 race. And I believe, if my stats are correct, that's Mr. Riley Herbst in the 98 Monster Energy car. I'm pretty sure that's correct. And not only that, he's very, very talented at this racetrack. So if I had to
It's
pick
his home
somebody,
track too. Home track too. Yeah.
if I had to pick somebody to come in here and play spoiler a little bit, I would not be surprised whatsoever to see that 98 car in victory lane. It's one of those too late situations with Riley and missing out on the round of 8. That's unfortunate. Happens to the best of them, but that does not mean he won't go out here trophy hunting and give reminding all 8 of these playoff drivers that he belongs with them just as much as anybody else.
Right. Yeah. And I can't hate that pick at all. I think I had spoke on this when we looked at the playoff preview and trying to get drivers into that championship four. Obviously, we both lost one of our picks with Riley Herbst this past weekend, not advancing, unfortunately for the 98 and Stuart Haas teams there. But again, the great thing about our sport is, even though they're still not in the postseason, they're still contending every weekend for great finishes for themselves, their sponsors, their team, and most of all, trying to get that trophy. Like you said, they're going
Right.
trophy hunting.
Don't care about
As,
those
as
playoffs no more. They're hunting trophies now.
Absolutely, and this is a track that does favor him, as far as his driving style and him being his home course. So I don't hate that pick at all. Now, do you have a dark horse? Is it one of the playoff drivers?
Yeah, my
What?
dark horse will definitely be one of the playoff drivers, and I think it's going to be a bounce back weekend for drivers like Justin Allgaier. He hasn't had the best playoff run. Now he finds himself at the top of this board, but there's been a couple of moments in the playoffs that have been like, "Ooh, is this happening again for the 7 car?" But look at Justin to finally get that W. I think that's going to be a really important win for him, and really launching him into the championship 4 race.
Yeah, yeah, and this is a great get it right spot for that team.
Right.
So I can completely concur and see that this race could play out that way for them. It's certainly a track that more suits him, and a good get it right spot for him and Junior Motorsports.
Find a little
Uh,
find a little rhythm, and that team should be just fine. Even if they don't get a win in this round, I still expect them make some noise there in the championship race.
Yeah. Um, So I got two picks, and both of them are in the playoffs. I looked back at some of the data we saw from the spring race, and then, I've looked at the last couple and just seeing at the trends. And I want to point out that the Toyotas were extremely strong in the Xfinity Series in the spring, and the Toyotas specifically from the Joe Gibbs Racing camp of one John Hunter Nemechek, who won the race, but Chandler Smith won stage 1 and 2 and finished third. Um,
Very
you
strong.
know, I I don't have Chandler Smith as my favorite for the weekend. I am going to pick him as my dark horse.
Okay.
My favorite is almost bouncing off of your favorite, uh, but going with his teammate who finished second in the spring, and that would be one of Cole Custer. Cole was also very, very good. He had good pace on the long runs, which you do tend to see some longer runs here.
Right.
And I also saw that out of those two Toyotas. I don't know who's running the 20 car this weekend. I honestly did not check. I'm
Typical me.
sure somebody's in it, and I'm sure it will be good. But I am going to go with the playoff drivers here and favor. That's where my picks are going to favor one of Chandler Smith or Cole Custer. I would not be surprised to see either one of those, especially with how much pace they had in the spring here. They both ran really strong races and finished in the top three respectively, only to lose to John Hunter at the end. So
Right. Those are
um,
great picks, man. And don't count out the heart of a champion, man. You got Cole Custer just still chipping away at this thing, man. I would not be surprised whatsoever to see that team in the 00 get a win and find themselves racing for a championship in back-to-back seasons. You mentioned Chandler Smith. Of course, Toyotas are always going to be strong here. It's really interesting too because Chandler is having himself one heck of a season in that 81 Toyota Supra. So wonderful picks. I love it, man.
Yeah, I do want to throw this little nugget in. We've been fortunate to have crew members from the Stewart Haas Xfinity teams on our show, and I was fortunate to touch base with one of them earlier this week, and he even felt that not discounting Martinsville for what it is, but they felt on the 00 team that they're going to strike while the iron's hot here the next 2 weeks. They
Right.
want to get a win the next 2 weeks and lock themselves into Phoenix and not have to sweat it out come Martinsville, kind of like they did last year. Martinsville is certainly one of those stressful, sweated out races. And if you can lock yourself in by winning one of the next 2 weeks, you're guaranteed a spot in Phoenix to go chase a championship. So, and that goes for any driver out there on the grid. But that was a comment that I took notice of. And, that is a big goal in the 00 Stewart Haas camp this weekend is to try to go out there and finish what they couldn't in the spring. And if not, they feel really good about next weekend as well.
Love it. Absolutely love it. You love hearing the confidence from the teams, especially when we've got a little bit of that little insider, information that we like to dabble in every now and then. And it'll be a lot of fun to watch these guys go out there and get after it. And of course, we're rooting for all of them to do well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm looking forward to an exciting race again. Those guys put on an incredible show out there, and
Xfinity and
just
Truth have been fire this season. Let's call it what
A-
it is.
abs- absolutely, and just with the way that they can suck up and pass, and then the multiple lanes that Las Vegas has. I mean, because you'll see people trying to dip low on the that shoulder on the front stretch and stuff. It's a really really fun race to watch, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm
So we'll
gonna
see.
the video game here later because I love racing it just for funsies myself. So
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But I really feel, I mean, any of our four picks, I really feel could certainly be standing in victory lane this weekend. And who knows? And like I said, we didn't check to see who's running that 20 this weekend, but maybe they repeat. Who knows? But
that 20 car is going to be in the top five by the end.
I'm sure it will be. And again, I don't know who's in it, if it's Amarola or whoever may be the case, but it's going to be a strong car when it goes out there. So we'll have to see how it shakes down. But speaking of shakedown, wow, did we have an exciting NASCAR Cup Series race at the Roval?
Goodness.
Just
Let's unpack this baby.
yeah. Not only was it exciting, but man, was it stressful. You know, I couldn't help but be texting you furiously as the race was going on.
Right.
You know, to anybody who's watching this, yes, there is a name media attached to what we do here, right? But let's not lose sight of what got us to here in the first place is that we love this sport and we're fans of this sport. And of
Right.
course that we've had some fandom throughout the years and you know, we'd be lying to you if we told you otherwise. And one of our drivers had an up and down day, and I certainly want to get to chat about that. But I do want to mention we saw a track change from Saturday to Sunday. NASCAR did decide to eliminate those big 4-inch turtles that we saw the Xfinity cars going over, and also the Cup cars in practice qualifying. You know, we saw it there on Saturday. Did not see it on Sunday. I
Right.
don't think it had too much of a change or an impact one way or the other on this race. The only area was the out of bounds mark, you know, with track limits, where we saw some drivers getting penalized, and some drivers weren't being penalized.
Right.
You know, it was one of those things where NASCAR called it how they saw it, and unfortunately, they didn't see it for everybody. I know it was a big ordeal when Bubba Wallace got a penalty, and literally two two blinks of an eye behind him was William Byron, who cut the track the same exact way. It just got called for one, not the other. Is what it is type of situation. The race played out the way it did, but uh, you know, the track limits thing was something that was discussed by some other industry experts along the way. And I honestly don't have an issue with the track limits. I just would like to see more consistency with making sure that we're calling the penalties boom and boom. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason that Bubba gets called and literally right behind him is Byron and he doesn't. So, um, you know, but as far as the turtles, I think NASCAR took those away for actually listening to the drivers. The drivers were really concerned about head and neck injuries. You know, yes, they wear a Hans device. Yes, they're strapped into those seats, but that's a jolt. I mean, you hit you hit a speed bump in your passenger car going 20 miles an hour, and you're going to be flopping around.
Right.
I mean, like, do it at 100, do it at 80, even if it's a tight corner and they're not, you know,
We
it's a
we
jolt.
we've seen what happens to drivers when they do hit them at 80 and 100 miles an hour and they go flying, or it just
Uh,
completely tears up their race car completely. So
right.
doing it
Uh,
at when they're slowing down in that chicane at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, it's still Ross
it's still violent.
Ross Chastain gave a perfect example. He said if he had the opportunity to do the Hail Melon again, he probably wouldn't do it because he felt like his brain was scrambled eggs after that. That's a direct quote from Ross Chastain after he rode that wall. Now that's almost a smoother transition around that wall than jumping one of these turtles. So the amount of violence that you're getting with these impacts and listen, the next gen car is super just stiff as it is already. It's built for
Right.
downforce. It's built for handling, so it's not going to have a lot of give in these shocks. And when
Mhm.
you throw them over a huge bump like that, of course, the driver is going to pretty much take all that energy because they're the only thing in that car able to move. And
Right.
so, like you said, with the Hans device, with all the safety features, the padding, it's still too much. Now, I did find it interesting that it was a couple of the older guys, the older drivers that seemed to have a little bit more of an issue with it compared to some of the younger guys. Who knows if that plays any kind of sort of role into that? Either way, drivers were concerning it. NASCAR turned around and did something about it. Now, something I wasn't too thrilled about, and I think I mentioned to you guys in the chat, but they only got rid of the one turtle in the chicane on the front straightaway.
Mhm.
I think in the bus stop they were still there. Daniel Suarez was jumping turtles. Alex Bowman was jumping turtles there, leading to the finish line, the start finish line. So they listened, but they picked and choose what they wanted to do, and it seemed odd that they would just take the one out instead of eliminating all of them.
Well, I think next year they may revisit that and eliminate all of them. I think for the sake of time,
Right,
because they made this change on Sunday morning,
right,
not Saturday evening even. It was a Sunday morning, last minute, we're gonna make a change here. I
right,
think they went to where it was in one of the more aggressive areas as far as where you'd be on the turtles if there's just really no way around it. And I, I feel like they went after it in an area where it might have been of most importance. And I do think that they're going to completely just get rid of them next year. I don't see the need for them, honestly. I mean, you could even do a little bit of a higher rumble strip if you wanted to, but you don't need a 4-inch turtle there. You just really don't. Even
Right.
with the Xfinity series, let's just keep it all even. And get rid of the turtles altogether. I don't think it makes for any worse racing or better. It makes for a better result for the driver that I'm okay with it. And I'm glad that NASCAR listened to those drivers. And, you mentioned the older drivers, but maybe those are the ones that have more of a voice and more of an impact to NASCAR that they'll actually listen to a Martin Truex Jr. They'll listen to a Denny Hamlin, whereas some of the younger drivers may squeal about it and they'll be like, but those guys who have been there for a long time, I think that NASCAR does want to show a little bit of that cross respect, and I
Right.
applaud them for making at least trying to make a
Absolutely.
change even at the 23rd hour. They did something about it, and I think it's just a matter of they ran out of time. And to make a full course change, but especially because there's a drivers meeting where that safety stuff has to be discussed, and typically NASCAR shows this nice um, video that's put together,
Right.
to explain the track limits, all that stuff. So you go making all these changes. I mean, you might as well toss that video out. And you know, next year is a new year, but I do think for what it is, it worked out. And you know, I just I don't think you need the turtles. I think it proved it, especially in that front chicane. Especially there. I mean, that's just a tight area. It's one of the slowest areas on the track too.
Right.
Before and then, so it's just yeah. I was okay with the racing. I think the racing was overall really good
Absolutely.
and exciting. And I think that you do have to, as a driver, you have to err on the side of caution in some of these corners, especially where we saw. And now's the time to talk about it. Uh, Tyler Reddick, early in the race, after winning stage one, comes in. He pits, gets his service because he stayed out, obviously, starting further in the back, because of the pit strategies, along with some other drivers that decided to stay out and get some stage points.
Right.
Um, and I don't necessarily think track position, I don't think it mattered whether you were in the top 10, fifth through 10th, or if you were, where he happened to be at the time of the incident, because everybody in that area of the track, it's just very congested. And if one person gets upset or does something and things change, you saw Tyler Reddick unfortunately try to miss it, but goes airborne,
Right.
comes down. And when he lands on his all fours, the car itself cosmetically looked pretty good.
Right.
However, he had broken tie rods, bent suspension. Um, Don, one of the reasons we started this was to shine light on how much NASCAR is a team sport, right?
Right.
Um, the drivers always seem to get their glory, and we wanted to always make sure that we don't forget about the team, the men and women that are responsible for getting these cars onto the track, to the track,
And
everything in between,
surviving 500-mile races.
and then also when you have an issue like Reddick did, we're talking about the regular season champion coming into this race just a little above the cut, and this had him below when he had this issue. He had to come in and try to get this thing fixed and drivable. The crew, from crew chief Billy Scott to the men over the wall, that got this car fixed without losing a lap, is just my hats off to them. And not only that, but they had to come in multiple times.
Yep.
They did everything they could to get this car right over a series of pit stops that happened under yellows. Um, and then they had to pass finally, after a series of pit stops. It took, not just on this particular caution because they had to get off the damaged vehicle policy.
Right.
They were
Make
able to maintain enough speed to do it, and then said something's still not right with this car,
right.
something's bent, and they had an idea what it was, but they just didn't have enough time to fix it at that time. So they're like, okay, well, let's bring it back in. And then stage 3, they had it fixed, had it right,
That
and
car was
then
fast in stage 3. My goodness. I mean, we saw
it,
Tyler absolutely wheel that thing back. It should have been a top 10 car after the damage. That's incredible.
the the drive that Tyler Reddick had is one for the ages. Um, your back's up against the wall. Your team did everything in their power to get the car right for you. Now we need you to go get those points,
Yep.
And um, I couldn't help but be tuned into the scanner to listen to the team communications, and I've heard Tyler get upset at times. Okay, I've heard team communications where Tyler's been upset at times throughout this season.
Right.
I didn't hear that this Sunday.
Nope.
I didn't hear woe is me. I didn't hear anything negative at all from anybody, whether it was the spotter, Nick, up in the spotter stand, whether it was Tyler behind the wheel, whether it was the crew. It was, let's get this right. We have a race of our own. You know, we need points. I'll tell you what, the strategy to stay out and win stage 1 was huge
Yep.
because regardless if that accident happened, and I said it doesn't happen if this happened 5 through 10th or if it happened where he was riding around 20th, the results are the same because we've seen this issue happen up towards the front of the pack too throughout the race. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, if it was going to happen, it happened. They just had to deal with the cards they were dealt, right? But that stage 1 win really helped propel what they needed, and made it possible for them to drive themselves into the postseason. That's exactly what Tyler Reddick did. You want to talk about regular season championship, on the, and everybody, you can make a mockery out of it, right? It's a regular season championship. Obviously, we're fighting for the big trophy at the end, but that trophy still mattered too because that is a model of consistency, and it's a nice reward to the team
Right.
and the driver. But they all know that's not the one they're really ultimately after,
Right.
and they would have been gutted had their playoffs ended at the Charlotte Roval for how good this team's been all season. They did not have a good round of 12. It continued at the Roval, but they flipped the switch because I'll tell you what, they showed up with a really fast car. First of all, they were very fast in practice qualifying.
Right.
He started second. He won stage 1, like we said. They did everything they had to do in stage 1. They had damage to the vehicle, so we don't know really what the 45 would have been had that car never been damaged. I think it was, like you said, it was definitely a top 10 car at the end of that race. I think it was a top 5, maybe even top 3 car if
Absolutely.
it never got damaged. That car had a lot of pace in it, and Tyler's really good at the road course.
The
Um,
fact that they were able to repair what happened to that car. We haven't even really discussed what actually caused the damage, and we'll get to that in just a second. And we won't spend too much time on Tyler, of course, but we still, of course, wanted to give credit where credit's due, and that is to Tyler for driving his little butt off, and that 45 team putting together a plan, sticking with it, win or lose, checkers or wreckers, they went out there and made sure they made the round of 8. That
yeah,
and it didn't seem like up until Monday or Tuesday that Tyler was getting a lot of love and respect for that because everybody was so busy talking about Bowman Logano and even Parker Kligerman news that Tyler Reddick's incredible heroic save of the season didn't get discussed enough. And then finally it started trickling through all the channels. We started to see more posts on it, the videos, the audio, of course, and it was absolutely incredible. I saw some stuff on social media and people were talking about, well, why did Tyler try and cheat everyone and dive? He deserved to get his car bent up like that. And other people were like, well, he was avoiding everybody checking up because there was already a spin up ahead of him.
right. Nowhere to go.
And so hot that he avoided hitting someone, and that just sent him right into the turtle. And that's what caused
Yeah.
the air to get up underneath the car. And ultimately when it came back down, damaged it. He ran into his boss on that
Hmm.
wreck. And then when he was making his comeback, he accidentally made a victim of Daniel Hemrick, I believe, if I remember correctly, in the 31 car. Tyler, if he doesn't have that little buffer there, he's probably spinning out and starting at the back of the pack and losing all those points that he already gained to that point. There were so many things that went into that race for that team, including unloading fast, going through the ups and downs. You got, it's not about the hand you're dealt, it's about how you play your cards. And they got dealt a crummy hand there in the middle of that race, but they played it right and they got themselves out of it, and they're still in the hunt for a championship.
Yeah. Yeah. Hats off to him, Tyler Reddick, the entire 45 crew. Again, we don't want to talk about it too much, but we want to shine light on it because I'll tell you what, if he's at Phoenix racing for a championship, it's likely because of that moment.
Absolutely.
That you can circle this moment as a championship style moment.
Right.
Okay. I want to think back to guys like Jimmy Johnson, right? Who won so many championships, but they were always great.
Right.
They tried to make the best out of what they had.
Never
And capitalize and never give up, never quit.
Right.
And that's what we saw out of the 45 crew. So again, hats off to those guys. But there's 7 other drivers that made the round of 8, and we need to talk about them too because initially, let's get this off of the docket right away. Initially, the 48 and Alex Bowman was one of those drivers. After post-race inspection, NASCAR had found, even after exhausting several efforts to get the 48 car to make weight, they were 17 plus pounds underweight.
Right. Well, the window is around 17 pounds. We don't know how far that window they actually were.
Yeah, they were plus 17 is what I was trying to say. Yeah,
correct.
Plus 17 underweight.
They were at least 17 because they couldn't even get within their window.
And just so you guys know, if you didn't know or didn't read about this by now and you're hearing about it, you're like, what? How? And the efforts that NASCAR really did try, they allowed the team to cycle the water through. And what we mean by that is coolant. So NASCAR doesn't put antifreeze into these cars.
Right.
They just run water, and they sometimes can lose or burn through some of that water. So what they do is they hook up a hose on one end, they put a feed and a return, and then they do basically an entire cooling system flush and refill that water to capacity after the car has cooled down, so they can make sure it's properly filled.
Right.
And then they also allowed that car to be completely topped off with Sunoco racing fuel.
Yep.
So as it went onto those scales in pre-race inspection, which was done on Saturday, not Sunday, that the car was how it was in their eyes, And the reason why there's plus minus because you've seen cars get in accidents and stuff and still been able to continue. Like we saw at Talladega. I mean, Stenhouse Jr. had a hole in his door.
Right.
And he met
missing there.
Yeah, so there's something missing, but he still makes weight requirement because they give you a margin for error. Okay.
Right.
And so that it's important for the fans to know because 17 pounds is a lot when it comes to a race car.
Right.
And the fact that they were over 17 pounds, even with, getting that coolant system flush done and a full payload of fuel, is a head scratcher. Now, how and why, we still don't know. I think this is going to die between NASCAR and Hendrick Motorsports.
Probably.
And, the car was confiscated and went back to NASCAR R&D, which is right down
the track.
Yeah, a few blocks from the track. And I don't know if Hendrick Motorsports has that car back yet, and they might not get it back until the end of the season. But I'm sure NASCAR really looked that thing over with a fine-tooth comb. They spoke of no further penalties. They just went to the rule book, which states that when you fail this way, that you are disqualified. Your finish result is disqualified, and you receive no points. So because he got no points, there opened the door for the guy who missed the cut. The guy who had points you know, as the next man up, which would be Joey Logano. So Joey Logano finished this race on Sunday with his team, thinking we didn't do it. We didn't have what it took. Now, mind you, Joey had a good run. He finished well. It's just again, every point matters, and because he didn't have other good races in this round of the playoffs, the round of 12, where he, and he didn't have that win like he had the prior round in the round of 16. So, they just didn't do enough to get there. But because of the disqualification to Bowman, Joey Logano is now in the round of 8.
Which is,
Um,
for those listening and those frustrated, I want to remind you, which is fair and square. Uh,
Absolutely.
there's been a lot of frustration, and it hasn't just been, I haven't seen it from just Bowman fans, but there have been people like, well, how did he make weight? Something doesn't seem, these cars change a lot in the course of a race. And, I say course, pun intended, this was a road course and cars take damage and things will fall off of a race car throughout the entirety of a race. Now, maybe the 48 team was already pushing the limits of how close they could be to how light you can be to make post tech, and they just happen to lose enough weight to get them over that leeway. We just that's probably the most logical
That's
explanation.
exactly what happened. And that's why we won't hear about it. you know, uh,
Up until Alex Bowman took flight and then went on to win stage two, it was a pretty crazy turn of events to watch them make
right.
it and then turn around and lose it not even an hour after the race. So
Right. Yeah, and I get it, Bowman fans. I get it for them. I get it for the team. I get it for um, their sponsors. It's gutting. If it happened to my driver, I'd be upset about it too.
very frustrating.
And we don't know, and I'm not going to point the hypothetical, and I'm not going to try to paint a picture of things that may happened or may have not happened. But we know that these NASCAR teams, since NASCAR racing was a thing, always push the limits with the rules. Always. And if you're sitting here listening to this and watching this and you don't agree with that, then you really need to go back and look at NASCAR history, because that's a thing. It will always be a thing.
Right.
Now, with these newer cars, NASCAR has really, really made it hard, with these next gen cars to do that, to stretch the limits. But teams do find a way, and well, they got caught. So it came back to bite them. Whether they were just there, we saw a piece fly off in the race. There's all
What
these extenuating circumstances. So I don't want to hypothesize, but the bottom line is they didn't make weight,
they were too late.
and they didn't just not make weight by a pound. Okay,
Right.
it's not like that margin for error, and NASCAR, hats off to them. They tried everything to get that car to make weight, and it didn't. So
Right.
we got to move on from this, guys. We got to move on from that. It is what it is. It's done. It's over with. It's gonna hurt. It hurts them, I'm sure. And Bowman fans, I'm sure it hurts you, and I'm sorry, but it is what it is, and that doesn't mean that Joey Logano doesn't deserve to be there. Because listen, at the bottom line is, if somebody cheats, and that we could say that word loosely, or we could say it hard, but if the outcome of the race was manipulated by a team, you're going to take offense to that, and the next man up should get that opportunity. So in
Right.
this case, it's the 22. And heck, had something happened and positions had it could have been the 45.
Yeah, and
So
if Tyler doesn't make the run he makes, he could have been on the
yeah,
outside looking in, and Tyler's getting that bump up into the top 8 with Bowman disqualification. So,
right. So
at the end of
either
the
way,
day,
somebody was getting a bump there, and it's just whether you think it's right or not. It's a round of 8. It's not a round of 7. So they're not going to exclude somebody. Here we go. And the other drivers in the round of 8, though, I mean, you almost had 4 Hendrick Motorsports drivers in this round of 8.
yeah,
But because of this DQ, it didn't happen. But so right ahead of Joey Logano is Chase Elliott, and then you have Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, who is now, we got to look at that bubble line. We're going to talk about that in a second. We're talking about above the bubble. Byron is 4 points above the cut. Tyler Reddick is 10 above the cut. Christopher Bell is 13 above the cut. And then there's Kyle Larson, who dominated this race And again, we gave a nice shout out to Sam Mayer. I'm going to give respect where it's due to the 5 team, not just Kyle Larson for driving the heck out of that thing, but man, the guy who sits on top of that pit box, that car's his baby, Cliff Daniels. An incredible piece he put out there. I mean, we've seen in this postseason for NASCAR just two complete butt whoopings by the 5 team, and that comes at the hand of it starts with Cliff Daniels,
Yep.
and it works its way down. So um, they're on it right now, guys, and it's scary if you're not a Kyle Larson fan because I mean, who's to say they can't carry this momentum? They are hot at the right time.
Yep.
And if it's not for misfortune, I definitely think it's going to be hard to pick against the 5 being at Phoenix running for another championship. I
Yep.
just say.
Yeah, listen, the 5 team is clicking on all 8 cylinders. And when you're doing it in the middle of the playoffs, heading into the round of 8 and eventually the championship 4, it's going to be really hard to bet against Kyle Larson in that 5 and that Chevrolet Hendrick.com race car. That's not, I'm not playing favoritism. I'm not, Kyle Larson is a hell of a race car driver. This is going off pure stats. And the fact of the matter is that team is whooping everybody else's teams. And
Yeah.
I'll steal a line from Denny Hamlin. He's beating our favorite drivers, right?
Yes, he is. Unless you're a Larson fan, he's beating your favorite driver.
I'm saying
That's absolutely correct. You're
that's
not wrong.
that team is putting in work. They're getting it done. They're getting it done at the right time. They've got 3 favorable tracks that's going to launch them right into the championship 4, barring some catastrophic, mind-blowing wreck at each track that prevents them from getting in. But that's not going to happen. If I had to say Kyle Larson was going to get DNF at one of these tracks, yeah, because the odds tell us that Kyle Larson will probably get at least one DNF, but I wouldn't even put that on them the way they've been running lately. They are absolutely just kicking butt, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see if a team can unseat them because they are running so well. So
Absolutely.
for the dramatic effect, if a team is able to take them down, that's going to be a lot of fun to see too. So congratulations to the 5 team getting it done again, heading into the round of 8 atop the points and really making it hard to bet against them at this point.
Okay, so here you go. We're going into the betting capital of the world in Las Vegas, and you don't want to bet against them. So who are your picks for this weekend, Don?
Oh, I don't do a lot of sports gambling. I never really been too big into it. But the odds are telling us, man, look what he did in the spring. Like it's Kyle Larson P1 and it's everybody else in P2. And that's just how it is. And until he gives us a reason, I did the same thing with Shane Van Gisbergen at road courses. I'm going to have to start reevaluating my road course picks because it seems like people are catching up to Shane. Now, in Shane's defense, he's catching up on ovals. So that'll be a lot of fun to see his transition and how he gets with confidence and experience. But man, as far as my pick, give me Kyle Larson to win Las Vegas because I don't have a reason to pick against him right now. Until he gives me a reason to pick against him, I'm picking him. If I had to dark horse this, somebody that's been quietly creeping along, and we need to make sure we keep our eyes on those Penske boys, and that's that 12 car of Ryan Blaney. This is where he got hot last year, and this is what really catapulted him into winning a championship in Phoenix is this round right here. So if I had to dark horse the Ford Mustang dark horse of Ryan Blaney, he'll be my backup pick in case Larson isn't able to get it done this weekend.
Yeah. Like you said, it's really really tough to pick against the 5 team going into Las Vegas, where a track that he has been lights out lately, and there's all the lights in Las Vegas, right? They're bright there. The
Yep.
city never sleeps, and it just seems like when Kyle Larson's in town, he just finds a way to park it. But I do want to bring up a point here, that believe it or not, in the last 7 races, he does not have the best average finish. The best average finish in the last 7 races is
Can I guess? Can I,
6.9. Yeah, go ahead.
6.9. Can I guess? Is it Christopher Bell?
No, it's not. It's his
Damn.
teammate. It's his teammate, Martin Truex Jr.
Martin Truex.
Martin's done that with finishing with top 10 finishes and one top five, he has 0 wins here in the last 7 races. So that's impressive considering that second place is Kyle Larson with 3 wins in the last 7 races. That's a scary stat though. 3 wins in the last 7 races.
Absolutely.
AJ Allmendinger last week was 4 for 4 in Xfinity starts here. Eventually, the well runs dry, right? You're going to
Right.
get a bad hand. It's Vegas, right? The dealer's going to win eventually.
Right.
So, I'm going to have to just say I'm not going to pick Kyle Larson this weekend because of that fact. Now, I think that Hendrick Motorsports is going to be a problem here. And you could certainly look into the likes of his teammate and William Byron. But I am not going to go there as well. And believe me, I think the 5 and the 24 are going to be a team that you have to contend with a win here. But I like 2 other drivers to win this weekend, and you just mentioned one of them. So my dark horse for this weekend is a driver that absolutely has been very, very good on the intermediate tracks. And I consider him a dark horse because of some of the way that these races have played out at Las Vegas for him. Just hasn't it just hasn't resulted in the finishes. But there's no doubt in my mind that he will be there at the end of this one, and that's the 20 car of Christopher Bell.
Right.
Now Christopher Bell, um, just he had a top 10 car in the spring and just had misfortune. So, I foresee him not having that misfortune this time. Um, he's going to be good there. And my second pick is the guy who finished second this past spring and has an
Right.
incredible tear and good average finish. He's right there with Larson and Byron as far as average finishes. And I'm going to go with the guy who just barely got himself there. But I think he's going to take a little bit of that momentum and good fortune from how things played out with misfortune at the Roval and take it to Las Vegas and actually close the deal. I do believe that your regular season champion Tyler Reddick parks at P1 this weekend and is the first to advance to Phoenix. And I mean, it's racing though, so anything's possible. That's where I feel my heart of heart and not for nothing. I think his teammate's going to be really good there as well. Bubba Wallace is going to run a very strong race out of Vegas. He's not a playoff driver, but I do believe that he will be a top 10 driver this weekend. So
Absolutely. Shout out to the new dad, Bubba Wallace, and that family. Congratulations on their healthy new baby. You just love seeing stuff like this. You love seeing the family aspect shine through. NASCAR, it's always been a family sport. If I remember correctly, their baby Bex was their first race was at the Roval. So they were there.
yes,
Everybody was there in person and getting in to enjoy it. It looks like Bubba is kind of exhaling after these races with a little bit more confidence, maybe introducing the baby to the world kind of changed his viewpoint on a few things. We'll never know, but from what I've heard from all my close friends and relatives, when you have a baby, it changes your life. So,
it's absolutely true.
Ryan, you can attest to that times 3.
Hmm.
So who knows? Maybe this is a new chapter for Bubba Wallace and that, and the finishes are definitely lining up one after another for him. That's for sure.
Yeah, he had a really, really good run on the road course, which is road courses we all know Bubba struggles on historically.
He used
But he's put a lot of work
He's getting
into.
better and better with each one.
Yep, absolutely. And that's you gotta tip the hat to him, because he's not giving up on it and trying. He knows that he needs to be better on these tracks. So,
Right.
yeah, they had a really good race there, and I think that they're going to have another solid run out in Vegas.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see the racing this weekend. The weather looks like it's going to be incredible. It's going to be nice and warmer out there for them, and complete opposite of what we saw this weekend. It was a little chilly out there this weekend. So,
Right.
yeah, I think we're going to be in store for some excellent, excellent racing. And then we get to kind of see after this first round this first race in the round of 8, how this looks like it might project, and maybe we could come back next weekend and kind of give you an idea who we think is leaning towards going to that championship for versus not. And then, oh yeah, by the way, next week we get all 3 series back on the track at the same time too. So
That's right. The trucks are back, and we love us some truck racing. That's for damn sure.
absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I'm really, really just seeing who can roll those dice right this weekend out at Las Vegas, and capitalize. Um, this is an important race because
It's
if you
huge.
win it, if you win it and you're a championship contending driver, you're one of those 8, and you win it this weekend, you're going to Phoenix. You get the chance for a championship. What a relief it would be to do it in the first race in the round of 8. I
Absolutely.
mean, there's no better way, and that's why we tune in.
The amount of
Yeah.
pressure it will take off of that driver and team where they can go enjoy. I say enjoy. They're still going to be business as usual, but they can approach the next 2 races a little bit different than everybody else that's not locked in, right?
Yeah.
Where you can gamble a little bit more, pun intended with leaving Vegas. You can gamble, you know what I mean? So you can take
Yeah.
a chance and maybe get some more stage points where you might not have been able to do that without a win at Las Vegas. So this win
Yeah.
is just as important as any other win in the playoffs. And these 8 guys, not only these 8, but the other 30 that are going to be battling around them. Man, I can't wait. It's going to be excellent.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to tune in.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait to break it down with you guys.
Absolutely. It's going to be great, man. I'm stoked. So just to recap, I got Bell, Reddick, you got Larson, Blaney, and then
Larson.
on the Xfinity side, it's I got Cole Custer, and as my favorite for the weekend.
Right.
Um, and then you went with Riley Herbst, his teammate, as your
Right.
favorite. So
Favorite. Yes, sir.
I'm excited, man. Let's see how it plays out,
Absolutely.
and we'll get to do it again next week.
That's right, man. Hey, listen, everybody that stayed tuned in with us for the whole show, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea. It takes an army to get this thing off the ground and rolling, but man, we're doing it. We're grinding, and we're pumping out more stuff. We got some great stuff coming up for y'all as far as guests. So make sure you stay tuned on that. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and all that good stuff too. We need that support. It sounds like a broken record sometimes, but the support always helps, and we appreciate every single one of y'all. From everybody here at Side Draft Media, my name is Don, my co-host Ryan. Thank you guys so much. Happy race weekend.